all for joining us for the second annual Tribeca Games Spotlight.
Several of Tribeca's selections this year are second acts as well. Sequels that return to worlds or characters that we love, and fresh perspectives and new adventures.
Some tell stories about family, cultural identity, and coming of age as a child, a teen, or an adult facing a world that never stops changing.
They invite us to investigate mysteries and navigate familiar yet dangerous terrain, or simply just cook a meal with people we love.
Others explore our fears about the future through dystopian tales of environmental ruin or technology run amok.
But all of them offer us an opportunity to think, play, and challenge ourselves. Whether that means a much needed break from the worries of our daily lives, or an experience that tells us something true about what it means to be alive.
Whatever you're looking for, chances are you're going to find a little bit of it in these games.
Here are the 2022 Tribeca Games Selection.
It isn't always easy going back to the place where you grew up. For Jala, the star of Thirsty Suitors, going back home for her sister's wedding means that she's going to be facing unresolved issues with her family, her friends, and a string of angry exes. As Jala, you're going to be forced to confront everything that you have been avoiding through cooking challenges and colorful turn-based battles, where you're going to be face-to-face with the biggest adversary of all, the decisions you made in the past. Hope your bag is packed. It's time for a trip back home with Thirsty Suitors.
Outer Loop Games is a fully remote studio that we started 5 years ago with the idea of making games about underrepresented cultures and themes. The studio is about 15 folks, and we're scattered from Seattle, Washington to Vancouver, to the UK, Toronto, east coast of US, like New York, and then 2 in Brisbane. Our first project was a game called Falcon Age. It's an action-adventure game about raising a falcon and fighting colonizers.
Falcon Age was the first time I personally have ever worked closely with someone else who's brown and South Asian on a team. I'd been in the industry for about 8 years by that point, so that's actually pretty shocking when you think about it. And I think one of the great things about that for me was the kind of conversations you can have, the kind of work that you can do, and you're coming from a similar basis and a similar background and experience. That's why I was really excited about working on Thirsty Suitors.
Hey y'all. You've been reckless with other people's hearts for so long, Jala. It was a matter of time before you wrecked your own. Morning, Ma.
Thirsty Suitors is an action-adventure RPG about immigrant culture, resolving relationships, family pressure, and finding oneself.
Timber Hills, our hometown. I still don't get why we're back here.
Jala is an extremely relatable character for anyone who's really had that moment of moving away from home and then coming back. She sometimes isn't quite aware of the things that she's doing in terms of like hurting people.
Maybe I should just call Tyler and get it over with. I mean, yes, Tyler's your ex-bestie, but she's also your ex. The ex.
She's kind of a hot mess at the beginning of the game, and that sets up an interesting dynamic for the player to get to know each of her exes.
Because your third grade boyfriend just walked in the door.
Every time you battle one of your exes, they go into their own inner space, like a fantasy land.
You look surprised to see me, Jala. Or are you just admiring the view?
So the way we design combat is based on like a non-violent beating up of each other. What I consciously did was not to have any punches that connect. All the props are being used as thrown objects, or punches and kicks exist, but they only exist in the form of like a holographic fist that comes out.
Come on, Sergio. Let's dance.
Did I mention I spent a year abroad? I learned a lot of new moves in Milan.
Trying to distract me with your chest hair is definitely cheating.
When we started thinking about the visual inspiration, it was about coming up with a style that matched the lightheartedness and the theme of the game. I wanted to create artwork that felt light, that felt bold, graphic, with vivid colors.
I love you, Jala. I have loved you since our hands met reaching for the same tub of lime green Play-Doh in 3rd grade.
Love me? This is the longest conversation we've had in over a decade.
I enjoyed the fact that this game is about reconciliation, because that's something that a lot of people don't get to do in real life.
I'm sorry I came on so strong, Jala. I've had this fantasy of you in my head for so long. It's time I got to know the real you. I'm ready to move on if you are.
I'm glad we figured that out.
In a lot of families, food plays a large role in the culture and a large role in learning things from your parents and being able to pass those on. And it's a part of Jala's journey, being able to reconcile that relationship with her parents. It's an outlet for her to be able to do that on their grounds and, you know, reconnect with her culture.
The skating session in our game is supposed to be really easy and accessible. I didn't want to make like this hardcore skate simulator. So the way I've designed the game is to make the players be able to do fun looking things like wall run grinds and other acrobatic tricks on a skateboard without the complexity of button inputs.
From where we're coming from, we're making this game, we want it to feel very familiar to immigrants and people of color and particularly like South Asians, so that they can see themselves. But I think it's also a very enjoyable act of like speculation and fantasy for anyone else, you know, come be part of this. We're making a role-playing game. Part of the pleasure of that is in inhabiting someone else and living their life. And I think that's kind of what we want to give players, this idea of being very grounded in Jala, this very specific character and her story and her personality, some of which is shaped by her culture and some of which is who she is.
Not the chapel! No!
Imagine a world where the richest people on the planet move to Mars in the midst of a climate catastrophe. In The Cub, that's the question facing a child who has found a way to survive in the ruins of a mutated Earth. But when the ultra-rich return on an expedition, they may get a lot more than what they bargained for.
Demagogue Studio is a group of filmmakers, writers, architects, musicians, animators and developers who make interactive experiences for a generation that might just live to witness the end times. We started experimenting with a couple of satirical games that led to Golf Club Wasteland, our first commercial success. Currently, we Demagogues are working on 2 games, one of which is a prequel and sequel to Golf Club Wasteland, a 2D cinematic platformer called The Cub. The Cub is essentially the Jungle Book set in an urban Silicon Valley-like apocalypse. After the Great Climate Catastrophe, the ultra-rich have evacuated to Tesla City on Mars. The rest of us died. Years later, when a research mission revisits Earth, they spot a human-like mutant kid while playing golf. Upon discovering the Cub, the science expedition turns into a relentless safari-like hunt. The kid ducks and dives through urban ruins. The little barbarian bastard has a plan.
I'm the son of no one. I am the son of no one.
While traversing this vibrant post-apocalyptic world, the Cub wears a space helmet he scavenged from a dead Martian. The helmet airs Radio Nostalgia from Mars, a radio station based on Mars, streaming music and stories of Tesla City dwellers' memories of their former home, Earth.
Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
The radio callers are nostalgic for our today. This is Future Archaeology, Future Retro, a sci-fi scenario that prompts us to re-evaluate the things we already have today, from friends and family to basic things like air and water. As Marshall McLuhan would say, we march backwards into the future. Similarly, the brutalist architecture in the environment serves many non-obvious functions. Brutalism stands for the 20th century and its apocalyptic war history. It stands for faith in large-scale progress through technology that spans multiple ideologies, which led to breakthroughs but also to pollution and climate change. In the 21st century, we have a brutalism of the soul, a reordering of the human psyche through the internet, as exemplified in the millennial pink neons peppered throughout our game's cityscapes, such as digidopamine or doom scrolling. Modernist architecture looks powerful, yet it's already turning into ruins, just as humanity might.
I like the circle around the sun.
The game is an homage to cinematic platformers such as Heart of Darkness, but also old-school Sega games like The Jungle Book or Aladdin. Further inspiration is drawn from classic literature, cinema and popular culture, a reflection on our commitment to storytelling and world building. The game has numerous interactive objects to find that enrich and inform the narrative, and also poke fun at future and current events at the same time. Hopefully, the game will make people feel, open the players' minds, and thereby bring a change in global politics and a universal bliss for all humanity. You know, what platformers are best at: enlightenment of the soul.
In 1998, the fates of two families converge at a motel in the Arizona desert, where a robbery gone wrong changes all of their lives forever. As the tale unfolds over the next few decades, step into the shoes of multiple characters to decide how that night will alter the course of their lives through a unique art style featuring actors digitally integrated into a beautiful cinematic world. This is As Dusk Falls.
Hello, I'm Caroline.
And I'm Charu. We're excited to be here and we'd love to tell you more about Interior Night and our game As Dusk Falls.
Oh, hey there. Got your car towed back for you. You were right. It's more than I can fix with duct tape and a socket wrench.
What do I owe you?
Nothing. Your guests.
Get it round back, quick! What in the world? On the ground, now! I said get on the ground!
As Dusk Falls is an interactive story. The decisions you make do have consequences. Our story is a crime drama that explores the intertwined lives of two families over 30 years. We have the loving family, the Walkers.
So, what's next? License plate game? Another round of row, row, row your boat?
And the Holts, which are the more desperate family.
Come on. This is 2-Rock, not NYPD Blue. Now get looking for that safe.
As you play the game, you will be stepping in the shoes of different characters. First, Vince, the dad, who is rooting his family to Missouri.
You are my flock, and I plan to herd you to St. Louis in high spirits.
And on their way in Arizona, they get caught in a hostage situation. There's also Jay, who is one of the members of the other family, the hostage takers, so you get to understand the world from his perspective.
Jay! What? Head out of the clouds, little bro.
Look, there's enough cash in that safe to put the last few weeks behind us. We stay alive, we keep the house, everything goes back to normal.
There's our third main character, who is Zoe.
Daddy, are we gonna play?
You bet we're gonna play.
Who you see across the 6 chapters from when she's 6 until she's 19, and she's becoming this young woman.
The visual art style of our game is unique, and it was crafted especially to tell this compelling story. It mixes beautifully painted 2D characters and sets them in an evocative 3D world. We film genuine and nuanced performances from actors to capture complex emotions and facial expressions. Players don't look at pixels, they watch people in all their humanity.
When it comes about like writing the story, we work probably a bit more like TV. So it's a very long process. It's dozens of versions of script. So it's not a linear one version of the story. We have to think all the choices, all the narrative space, all the branches feeding into one another. It's kind of a 3D map.
How could you have thought you'd be happier without your family? I mean, without mine, I'd be...
I don't know. I guess I just never liked being tied down. With a family, I felt...
trapped?
We wrote every character from a place of empathy, and we try not to be judgmental towards any of them. We try to understand each of them. And I hope the players will feel the same way and try to empathize and understand and relate with all of them.
Did you get the money? Oh, we got it all right. Nice work, guys. Hold on tight.
Family meals are a time not just to create memories, but to share them. For Venba, the mother of the family, cooking is a way to connect to the culture and the life that she has left behind, and pass those memories on to her young son. Each recipe she teaches him is not just a list of ingredients, but a piece of a much larger story about where he comes from, who his family is, and the challenges they face. Here's a taste of what's to come in Venba.
How did you get started in game development? Well, basically, I took a quiz online to figure out what my career should be back when I was in high school, and after I did the quiz, it said I should be a video game developer.
We were working on this project called Balloon Man. It was this Mega Man style boss rush game about this depressed superhero whose superpowers are only to make balloons. We were a couple of months into the project when Abby texted me this paragraph pitch of Venba. I remember the day I was eating at a restaurant with my mom and my sister.
Venba is a narrative cooking game where you play as Wemba, who moves to Canada in the late 1980s. But during this move, her recipe book gets damaged. So as the player, not only will you be cooking various South Indian dishes to restore these recipes, but you will also be exploring the story of this family and the unique challenges that they face.
And the idea resonated with me so much. Maybe because my mom was there, I felt a connection to the idea because it's about a mother and a son. It was too compelling to not work on, so we decided to move on to Venba.
Venba at its core is about the relationship between the mother and the son. One aspect that we wanted to touch upon was the loss of language. As Kevin grows up here and grows more assimilated, he loses touch with his mother tongue Tamil, and he adopts English instead. So as a result, the literal communication between Venba and Kevin is quite broken. And you can see this in the recipe book given to Venba by her mother as well, because in the travel, the words and the pages get damaged, so as a result, the communication between generations there too is quite broken. Venba, who feels a lot of guilt for having moved to Canada in the first place, doubles down on the things she holds dear, like her culture, her language, her food, the longer she stays here. So it becomes really important for her to fix the recipe book, because for her that's a way for this link to persist across generations.
In our household, we very rarely ate outside food, so cooking was very important. Everything was made from scratch and daily. And unlike Venba, there were no recipes. Food was just made by testing, taste, improvising, and asking around.
The cooking gameplay specifically was a big challenge for us. Most cooking games that we know take a lot of the physical elements of cooking, like chopping an onion or flipping a pan, and turned those into actual gameplay mechanics. This didn't really fit the theme and the story of Venba, and that's where the damage recipe book idea came to fruition. We thought that a puzzle-based cooking game made for a much more compelling and appropriate gameplay mechanic.
I wanted the sound effects to be really realistic and reminiscent of a South Asian kitchen. I recorded like the dishware that we use and utensils, just items from the kitchen. But that also involves a lot of recording of actual cooking. I wanted the sounds to be very nostalgic for those that grew up in a similar background. I wanted this emotional impact to come across through sound.
The music in this game, it primarily comes from an in-game radio influenced by Tamil movies and music that were a huge part of my life growing up. And we took a lot of effort to make sure that the songs sound like something you would hear back home when you would turn the radio on. It was the hardest thing for me to choose what recipes get showcased in the game. It's impossible to do justice to the wide range of dishes and cuisines that we have. Instead, I just focused on what recipes would make for fun gameplay puzzles and what ingredients would this family have living in Toronto.
Even though the story of Venba is pretty firmly rooted in Tamil culture, we think it hits on some pretty universal themes.
The influences for this game, it primarily draws from the stories of the families that I see here, especially the relationship between first-generation parents and their children.
We're hoping that in the future we'll keep being able to tell these kinds of intimate stories through gameplay. You know, maybe it'll make you want to call your mother in the end.
2 years ago, the game A Plague Tale: Innocence invited audiences into the world of Amicia, a teenage girl living in 14th century France. As Amicia, you had to use courage and cunning to protect your 5-year-old brother Hugo from soldiers of the French Inquisition, swarms of rats carrying the Black Plague, and the supernatural evil coursing through Hugo's veins. Now, Amicia and Hugo are back in a new adventure called A Plague Tale: Requiem. Get ready for hand-to-hand battles on ruined castles, thrilling adventures on the high seas, and yes, more rats than ever.
Amicia! He doesn't deserve this.
Qui est Asobo en fait? Asobo, on est un studio de développement indépendant. On l'est depuis le début et depuis toujours. Au départ, c'est 12 passionnés qui fondent le studio limite dans un garage. Évidemment, aujourd'hui, on est 250, mais on a été rejoint par 250 passionnés aussi. Et c'est ce qui nous permet de faire des projets incroyables comme Microsoft Flight Simulator et Plague Tale Requiem, par exemple.
Is it? The bite, yes. They've locked the arena down. They let them die here.
It's starting all over again.
Plague Tale, c'est notre bébé à nous. En tant que studio indépendant, c'est la première fois qu'on se lançait vraiment dans quelque chose on va dire de personnel, d'intime à l'équipe. On a commencé vraiment de la feuille blanche au départ. Donc on voulait un jeu d'aventure, un third person action adventure. Et on s'est dit qu'en fait notre meilleure chance c'était de partir de notre spécificité de français en fait. On est dans un pays chargé d'histoire, Bordeaux est chargé d'histoire, on vit tous les jours dans des murs qui ont plusieurs centaines d'années. Et c'est quelque chose qu'on manipule avec justesse et ce qui nous a permis de donner au jeu une identité vraiment forte et de s'écarter un peu du côté héroïque fantasy et d'aller dans quelque chose de plus cru qui correspond exactement à la nécessité de construire une histoire qui s'ancrait dans le réel pour mieux partir dans le fantastique et dans l'émotionnel quand c'était nécessaire.
I don't know what's happening to me, Lucas. I feel my mind going.
Une grande sœur, un petit frère, c'est quelque chose qui résonne en nous, qui va parler un peu à tout le monde. Et donc ça a été vraiment le point de départ. Hugo et Amicia, ça a été les premiers personnages qui sont nés.
Amicia, la grande sœur, et sa manière d'appréhender un petit frère dont elle n'avait pas la charge et où tout d'un coup elle va en avoir toute la responsabilité. Hugo, qui est un jeune enfant qui ignore tout du monde, et en réalité est chargé d'un pouvoir et qui le dépasse, et comment ce duo va grandir ensemble et réaliser l'histoire beaucoup plus grande qu'eux qui est en train de se réaliser, dont ils sont les acteurs principaux.
It's bleeding again.
Yes, we should fix that before it gets infected, I guess.
Amicia, donc, c'est une jeune fille, c'est pas une guerrière, donc le gameplay de Plague, c'est un gameplay plus orienté sur l'infiltration et la survie. Le but étant toujours d'être plus malin que ses ennemis pour survivre, que ce soit les rats ou des ennemis humains. Après, Amicia, il y a des moments où elle va devoir combattre, elle va devoir faire face, donc avoir des phases plus orientées action, plus orientées combat. Toutes ces phases-là construisant un rythme narratif qui vient servir l'évolution du personnage, donc son rapport à la violence, son rapport au monde, à chaque fois est nourri par la variété de ces séquences-là. Le contexte de la peste était intéressant parce qu'il était vecteur d'émotions et de danger pour les enfants. Mais incarner une maladie, c'est jamais très évident, surtout dans un jeu vidéo où on doit avoir une adversité et pouvoir lutter contre quelque chose. Donc on a utilisé la représentation la plus symbolique de la peste, qui était les rats. Ça faisait une belle incarnation de la maladie, mais pour que ce soit impressionnant et qu'on ait cette sensation de propagation, il en fallait des milliers. Il fallait qu'on ait ces rats qui se déversent dans les champs, dans les forêts, pour montrer la maladie qui progresse et qui rabâche tout sur son passage. Donc les rats sont une version amplifiée d'une maladie qui se propage. C'est à la fois une menace mais un outil pour Amicia, c'est-à-dire que grâce au pouvoir d'Hugo, grâce à ses outils à elle-même, elle va pouvoir utiliser les rats pour progresser parfois. Mais souvent, elle va devoir faire face aussi pour trouver un moyen de les traverser sans se faire dévorer. On écrit nos chapitres un peu comme des épisodes. Cette impulsion qu'on a quand on regarde une série, la retranscrire en jeu vidéo, c'était essentiel pour nous.
C'est une technique d'écriture assez large. C'est vraiment une architecture globale qui vient rythmer tout le jeu et bien sûr la narration vient se coller à ça au plus près. Alors à chaque fois avec des challenges différents parce que sur les phases d'exploration on a toute la liberté au niveau des dialogues etc. Parce qu'on sait que dès que le joueur va rentrer dans une phase de combat, là il va être beaucoup plus focalisé sur ce qu'il est en train de faire. Donc c'est à nous de pondérer, de se dire ok ce qui est important on va aller le raconter plutôt ici. Là, on va laisser faire le gameplay et donc tout ça se fait avec Kevin. Enfin voilà, c'est une discussion qui est permanente au fil de 3 ans de production, constamment de faire évoluer le jeu autour de ça.
You should sit down.
Oh, so that's all you have to say? Come on. You can do better than that. You have a whole garrison here, why don't you really let yourself go?
Stop!
No! Do you see the situation we're in? We were just supposed to get herbs.
Faire plein de projets nous a obligés à avoir des outils à la fois à la pointe de la technologie mais très modulables. Et le fait d'avoir par exemple notre équipe engine à la maison, ça nous permet d'aller les voir directement et dire on a un challenge relatif au jeu qu'on est en train de développer et il nous faut un moyen de le solutionner et ça permet d'atteindre des prouesses comme par exemple les gigantesques hordes de rats qu'on voit déferler sur les villes dans les trailers ou des choses comme ça.
Mais après, on a vu aussi nos faiblesses à certains endroits, notamment puisque, il a fallu s'en rendre compte, les cinématiques qui demandaient une logistique très lourde. Donc en fait, on a vraiment investi sur un studio motion capture qui nous appartient et qui nous a permis d'avoir une énorme flexibilité en termes de tournage.
I don't know what's happening to me, Lucas. I feel my mind going.
Donc Olivier de Rivière, notre compositeur, c'est quelqu'un qui amène énormément de choses dans le jeu. Et donc il arrive et il a plein d'idées. Et là, on parle vraiment d'émotion, on parle vraiment de comment colorer des scènes donc avec de la musique.
Et il y a des moments où il nous sort des compositions incroyables. Et on regarde le level en face ou la séquence en face, on se dit tiens, c'est super ce qu'il a fait, mais nous on n'est pas au niveau du coup. Donc il va falloir se battre un peu pour remonter nos trucs et accompagner sa musique parce que ça marche dans les deux sens.
L'amour vis-à-vis de nos personnages, c'est une chose qu'on ressent nous au quotidien. Et moi je sais que dans le travail d'écriture, c'est quelque chose qui est fondamental. On veut rien faire gratuitement. On sait que le jeu peut être très très noir, très très dur, mais il y a toujours une raison à ça. Ça suit vraiment une forme de logique.
À chaque fois qu'on écrit quelque chose ou qu'on réalise quelque chose pour Requiem, quand ça sonne faux ou quand ça passe pas, on sait que Hugo ou Amicia nous disent non, j'aurais pas dit ça, j'aurais pas agi comme ça. Et donc c'est amusant parce qu'ils font le jeu avec nous en fait un peu.
Would His Majesty allow us to enter the city by his side?
I allow.
When Cuphead came out in 2017, the first thing people noticed was the distinctive cartoon art style, inspired by the golden age of American animation where every frame was drawn by hand. Now, Cuphead is back with a new adventure called Delicious Last Course, with a whole bunch of new enemies and ways to die, and a new heroine named Ms. Chalice. So, if you are up for the challenge, get ready for Cuphead Delicious Last Course.
After the first game released, we had that itch to go back and revive some of the material that landed on the cutting room floor.
Well, looks like it's bon voyage to our old pals Cuphead, Bugman, and the lovely Miss Chalice. They're off on their next adventure, this time to the fabled DLC Island.
The Delicious Last Course is more fantastical cartoon action. It's a true second helping of screen-filling, boss battles, imaginative stages, and new powers. This new adventure and expansion lets us really give Ms. Chalice a chance to shine. We had always envisioned her playing a really important role as part of the main trio of heroes. This was our opportunity to further explore animation, music, gameplay homages, all of which we didn't get to in the first game. The origin of the original Cuphead character, we probably went through about 300 concepts. We began brainstorming in the 1930s tradition of giving inanimate objects faces and personalities. We really wanted to create a central character that could sit alongside some of the iconic joyful heroes we loved growing up, like Felix the Cat and Mickey and Bimbo. And then one day we just had one of those amazing aha moments when a loose sketch of a silhouette of a cup and a straw began to take form that would eventually become Cuphead. Having the chance to re-explore this world, to make something special for our fans while taking our time on the little details and making sure we're getting them just right. In so many ways, Cuphead, game and character, has been with our whole team through life's many changes. These characters have become like children of sorts, and getting a chance to take them on a new adventure to close this chapter of their story is just really exciting.
For there's a new challenge waiting around every corner on the amazing DLC Island.
2016's Oxenfree introduced the supernatural coming-of-age story of a teenage girl named Alex and her friends celebrating the end of a school year on the mysterious Edwards Island, contemplating their futures and accidentally opening a ghostly rift. Oxenfree II Lost Signals brings us a different kind of coming-of-age story, one about Riley in her 30s facing the choices she made as a young adult and figuring out what comes next. This is Oxenfree II Lost Signals.
Welcome, welcome. First, we're gonna have a little fun tonight, folks.
Residents of Cuphead reported strange interruptions in their radio broadcasts over the storm.
1-1, I need visual confirmation of the clouds above Edwards Island. Over.
Bit of a leap there. We could climb down here. Also, it might take a little longer. I just don't think we can make the gap.
I can make it, probably.
Can you? Because...
Well, we'll see, won't we?
Riley! Riley! What I think has allowed Oxenfree to have such a long life in the hearts of our players are these characters. It's all about the characters.
The characters of Oxenfree are intended to feel like people that you would know.
You're invested in their well-being.
The issues that they deal with are ones that everybody can relate to. What does it mean to lose somebody that you love? What does it mean to be entering a new moment of your life that you're totally unprepared for? It's open-ended enough that you can always ask yourself, what would I do in this situation?
Watch your step. I don't think this was meant for tourists.
It's, sort of pretty, in a way.
No, it's amazing. In another life, I would have been a geologist. Or took at least an intro to geology course, you know?
Oxenfree is a game about some really relatable characters, but put in crazy, unrelatable situations.
Riley's from Kamina, and unlike Alex and her friends in Oxenfree 1, Riley did not have the best time growing up in this area.
The first game, really tight kind of focus on a few classmates. This game is about Riley coming home and interacting with Jacob, who is somebody who she went to high school with, dealing with her father, dealing with a whole host of new characters that are along this coast.
If you know the tunnels well enough, you can walk to and from practically any point in town completely underground.
Have you, been down here before?
Me, personally? No. Some of the kids do, or did, in high school. They'd crawl in here, light a fire, make out, or whatever. But I'm too little a fan of small, dark spaces to really see the desire.
I'm really looking forward to people playing with Jacob, who is their kind of main counterpart throughout the game.
Take a look at Jacob. He's got this questionable facial hair. He's got the hipster hat.
Funny how just a little light makes everything both less and more spooky. Weird, right?
And his animation also gave him that laid-back kind of, hey, I'm just hanging out here in the woods, not being creepy.
Jacob actually has direct ties to the events of Oxenfree 1, and particularly the history of Maggie Adler. Maggie was the woman that first kind of discovered what radios could do. She was the one who was kind of tied to the events that really kicked off the whole story.
Hey, if you're on this frequency.
Yes?
My mom used to tell me stories. That's why I'm calling. Because one of the stories was about tonight and the things that are going on.
The cool thing about the radio is that it opens up a whole different axis of exploration to the player. It's not just exploring Edwards Island as a space, it's exploring Edwards Island as an infinite number of kind of radio frequencies. Certain objects in the game will resonate with certain frequencies.
I think. I mean, we're not dead.
The alternate timelines in the Oxenfree universe are really interesting because it allows the player to explore the possibility of going back and changing the past.
I think we're back when the mine was somewhat operational. I don't think anyone's around. Let's see if the time tear opened anything up.
The player gets to open these portals in time and go through them and talk to these other ghostly characters. Portals are getting open when they don't want it to happen, and so they've got to deal with the ramifications of that.
Portals are fascinating, very beautiful, very mysterious, but ultimately very dangerous.
Jacob?
The stakes are very high for this one. One, we've got a new set of antagonists who are actually actively trying to open a portal on their own for some nefarious reasons. But two, while that is happening, we're seeing tears in time. Those tears are allowing things from completely other timelines to start coming in and out of our timeline. It's going to be much less about some localized little thing in this town, and it's more about the fabric of time and space kind of melting down.
I mean, look, when you're messing with the time-space continuum, that's just a bad idea.
Riley, come in, Riley. Can you hear me? Riley? Riley, are you there?
In Immortality, created by Sam Barlow, full transparency, I'm a huge fan of his previous games, Her Story and Telling Lies, you don't just find one, you find 3 unreleased films spanning over 3 decades, and they all star Marissa Marcel, who has since disappeared. So, can you watch footage and behind-the-scenes clips and interviews to piece together the mystery of Marissa Marcel? This is Immortality.
What is your name?
Marissa Marcel.
First heard about Marissa Marcel in 2015. I was at a party in Hollywood and I was listening in to these old guys, writers, producers who were big in the 70s. They were swapping war stories, gossiping, and one of them brings up the story of Marissa Marcel, this actress who shoots 3 movies over 3 decades and how none of the movies ever comes out. I was interested, and after the party, I went home and I Googled and found very little of anything online, but I was intrigued, so I continued to dig and attempted to find something more concrete.
Now, we know you from the movie that you just finished shooting. It is finished, right?
Yeah, it's finished.
Yeah. If you don't know, it's a bit of a fairy tale. So Arthur Fisher, the great director, who you probably know from his movies such as Marion and The Man Who Dreamed, was casting for his new movie, Ambrosio. And so instead of casting a recognizable face, he wanted to find some fresh talent. So he put the word out and saw, how many was it, 10,000?
I think it was over 20,000.
20,000. He saw 20,000 girls, and long story short, he picked you.
Yes.
2 years ago, we were approached by an anonymous donor who handed over this huge cache of film. In it was footage from rehearsals, behind-the-scenes B-roll, and completed shots from the shoots. As far as we can tell, this is everything that remains of the 3 Marissa Marcel movies.
Before I go, I would like some token of our friendship.
You could have walked away from this.
We brainstormed how best to use this footage, how to make it available to the world. So first we very carefully cleaned and scanned all of the film, digitizing everything. But there were enough gaps where we weren't able to cut full movies.
So we took some of the ideas from my earlier games, Her Story and Telling Lies, the idea of a more exploratory way of viewing film stories, and we built on that. We created a virtual movieola, a way of looking through the footage as if you were back in the editing suite with Arthur Fisher or John Durick. And to build on this idea, we came up with a new mechanic, a kind of visual concordance.
Does this work as a confession?
Exploration by match cut.
Good words.
When you're watching, at any point you can stop and point to an image, an actor, a prop, and the system will create a match cut to another piece of footage with that image.
Now it's worth more.
So you kind of surf through the footage in a way, following a breadcrumb trail of visuals, creating your own montage. It's both expressive and exploratory, like the best of video games. When you have a situation like this, where no one really knows what happened to Marissa Marcel, people tend to fill in their blanks. Their imagination goes to dark places. I would not use the word haunted.
Do you ever wish you lived in a simpler, safer, more optimistic time? Trevor Hill does. He lives in Arcadia, a utopian American town in the 1970s where the future seems brighter than ever. Like the other citizens of Arcadia, he is a contestant on a reality show where viewers are secretly judging his every move. When Trevor learns the truth from a rogue technician, he goes on the run. But how do you escape in a world where everyone is always watching?
En American Arcadia, nada es lo que parece.
Now in its 55th season, American Arcadia.
Y es que Arcadia es en realidad el reality show más visto del planeta y está gobernado por rankings de popularidad.
Control subject on the run on camera 4025. Interrupt broadcast immediately.
Bienvenidos a Arcadia, una ciudad retrofuturista de los 70, donde todos los ciudadanos disfrutan de una vida de confort y de lujos sin saber que están siendo grabados las 24 horas del día. Para nuestro protagonista, Trevor, que vive una vida simple, aburrida y feliz, esto es un problema.
Life was mundane.
Y cuando descubre la verdad, tendrá que escapar de Arcadia.
Stop immediately.
Run! Keep running for God's sake.
Por otro lado está Ángela, es el ángel de la guarda de Trevor. Es una hacker dispuesta a todo con tal de salvar a una persona normal, por el mero hecho de hacer el bien.
The hallway to the server room is tracked by 3 surveillance cameras. I need to get close to the cameras and upload the loop footage from my cell phone.
Uno de los puntos fuertes de American Arcadia es la dualidad entre Ángela y Trevor. Y eso también se ha intentado transmitir en cierta manera al gameplay.
Get over that crane, Trevor, quick!
The crane?
Yes, trust me!
Oh no.
Tenemos dos tipos de gameplay totalmente diferenciados. Por un lado tenemos el side-scroller, el 2.5D, con acción y plataformeo, persecuciones y, como no, puzzles. Por otro lado tenemos la jugabilidad en primera persona, con un tono un poco más pausado, que nos lleva a experimentar mecánicas de exploración, sigilo y hacking, usando siempre los puzzles como parte central de la jugabilidad.
All the videos are uploaded and playing the loops. I can enter the server room now.
Y bueno, para American Arcadia las referencias más visuales más inmediatas son el show de Truman, la fuga de Logan, el prisionero y algunas otras. Lo cierto es que muchos de los miembros del equipo nacimos y crecimos durante la década de los 70, por lo que no hemos tenido que ir muy lejos a la hora de buscar inspiración y referencias visuales, puesto que la mayoría las llevamos ya dentro de nuestros propios recuerdos. Muchos de los programas de televisión, series, concursos, etcétera, que veíamos en nuestra niñez, pues están presentes de alguna manera en American Arcadia. Una visión bastante brillante y colorida de lo que serían los años 70. Los personajes, los ambientes, incluso el mobiliario, representan esta versión utópica y bastante kitsch de una ciudad de los años 70.
Siempre me gusta tener un tema principal para el juego y diferentes leitmotivs para los diferentes personajes que se van uniendo en una única banda sonora donde se van mezclando y representarán los dos mundos, tanto el de los 70 como el del futuro, mezclando elementos electrónicos y orquestales.
Hey, I can't see anything in here.
Jeez, man, just hug your teddy bear real tight while I try to turn on the lights, okay? Okay, is that better? Now, let's try to find a way out of here. Trevor, are you wheezing? You're in terrible shape, man. Don't you get any exercise at all?
No, not since PE in high school. Because of my metabolism, I don't easily gain weight, so I don't usually do any...
Okay, I'm not here to judge your lifestyle or your dietary habits. Just save your breath and keep going.
In American Arcadia, what we want to tell is that you don't need to live just for getting likes on social networks. Just do the things